Sorry, boy, but his captain's got to teach his men what happens to those what crossing.
Captain's got to teach stuff.
Good afternoon from the Bat Cave. It is November 24th. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. And I wanted to take some downtime and do a video. It's been a while since I did one. You guys, for those of you who listened to some of my earlier content on just going through the books of the Bible, I am going through final edit phase on a book called The Apostles' Teaching, which is basically the New Testament in order. And once that is done, I'm going to redo all those videos because those videos were done when I was really in rough draft phase of doing that. And so you can probably find a lot to criticize in terms of how I was managing the Greek and stuff on that, because a lot of that was very new. It was like first pass work at that time. And I'm approaching this as a student, not as a master or a teacher, just somebody who's researching and doing my homework, and you guys are welcome to come along. So anyways, I want to do just a quick video on another typological proof for the mid-tribulation rapture. And this is one that actually I learned from another video on the subject. There was this tiny little channel that I found by a guy in Ohio who supported the mid-trib position, and this was actually a really good typology. This was one of the ones that I was just like, okay, this is pretty rock solid when you start to look at it. So from a typological perspective, and I'm going to have several more of these types because there's several more types about the rapture being mid-trib. You have Joshua takes over from Moses after they're getting ready to go in the Promised Land, and typically the difference between Moses's campaigns and Joshua's campaigns are meant to reflect the Old and New Covenant, or Moses and Christ, because Joshua has the same name as Christ. So Moses is able to bring you to the Promised Land, but not into the Promised Land, and that's meant to be the the typological paradigm that God's displaying there. And of course, Joshua, who is Jesus, brings you into the Promised Land. And so Joshua's campaign in the Promised Land is largely a reflection of Christ's ultimate victory at Armageddon and setting up his kingdom. That's really what it's supposed to represent. So there's going to be a lot of parallels in Joshua to the book of Revelation if you really understand what you're looking for. But at one point in time, Joshua goes in there, and the first thing he does is he is getting ready to send these two spies to go see Rahab the harlot. And these two spies are types of the two witnesses. Rahab is the type of the church. She is basically a Gentile who ends up marrying into the line of David. So she actually marries David's great-great-grandfather. His name is Salmon, which is another kind of a transliteration of Solomon. So it means basically man of peace. Anyways, he sends these two spies into Jericho, and then these spies, because Jericho because Rahab believes in the God of Israel and fears the God of Israel, she helps the spies in exchange for her family being protected when Israel comes to town, because she knows Israel's going to win. She knows their God is all powerful, and their God helped them defeat the Egyptians. And these stories have circulated from Egypt to Canaan over the past 40 years while Israel's been wandering in the wilderness. Remember, the Philistines, who are also in the land of Canaan on the west coast, they're an Egyptian tribe. So they would have heard all this news about Egypt just being humbled by God and basically decimated. I mean, all their firstborn, which means all their princes, are killed. Their armies were wiped out in the Red Sea. They really aren't able to project power into Canaan after this, which is why the Philistines become really one of the main strongholds, because the Philistines were pretty much like the eastern garrison of the Egyptians. They are an Egyptian tribe. So in the light of that, the Amorites become really strong, and really Jericho becomes a stronghold city that seems to be impenetrable at that time. But they know now the Jews are here, the Jews who left Egypt and devastated Egypt. So she is aware of this. She helps the two witnesses, and there's your primary type about the fact that you have the two spies as the type of the two witnesses, and Rahab believing the two witnesses essentially. So there's a first type that the church will be present for the two witnesses. But that's not even the kicker. So the kicker is when you actually get down to, I think it's Joshua chapter 6, where they actually take Jericho. what they do is God gives them a very specific order that they have to go in. And essentially, they have to compass the city for 6 days. And then on the sixth day, they have to blow 7 trumpets. Well, remember, prophetically, Psalm 90 and 2 Peter chapter 2, a day of the Lord is as 1,000 years. So 6 days is 6,000 years before Christ's campaign to, take Israel, the promised land, and basically liberate the people. And on the sixth day, so I'm sorry, on the seventh day, so that would be in the beginning of the seventh millennium, which we are technically in it now. There's other prophecies. It's got to be 2 days or 2,000 years after Christ ascends into heaven, per Hosea chapter 6. But we are in the seventh millennium now. So in the seventh day, it says they compass the city 7 times, and then they blow 7 trumpets. So it says, it shall come to pass, and when you make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend every man straight before him. And Joshua the son of Nun called the priests, and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. So people always want to get into the Feast of the Trumpets, and well, the Feast of the Trumpets, they blew silver horns and ram's horns, and the difference between this horn and that horn doesn't matter. It's 7 trumpets, you guys. Feast of Trumpets, 7 trumpets, okay? And so these 7 trumpets are blown, and what happens? After they blow the trumpets, the walls of Jericho fall down. But Jericho's not destroyed when the walls fall down. The walls just fall down, just that make it just, its defenses come down. Okay, so what ends up happening is, even though the walls fall down, Rahab's house that is built into the wall is spared. And so after they blow the 7 trumpets, it says, and the young men that were spies, those were the 2 witnesses, went in and brought out Rahab and her father and her mother and all her brethren and all that she had, and brought out all her kindred and left them without the camp of Israel. So they take out Rahab and all her family and all that they have, and they set them aside, and then they go in and burn the city. So you see this perfect typology of 2 witnesses, and the 2 witnesses are there at the beginning. They warn Rahab, and then they get Rahab at the end. So they point her out at the end. Well, remember, the 2 witnesses at the 7th trumpet, when the 7th trumpet sounds, it's right after the 2 witnesses are resurrected and raptured. And who gets resurrected and raptured with them? The church. Okay, so the 2 witnesses take them out, and they set them outside of the camp of Israel. And then it's funny because she's just called Rahab the harlot. How'd you like your last name to be the whore? But anyway, she ends up marrying into, she says, and she dwelleth in Israel even to this day, because she hid the messengers which Joshua sent to spouse Jericho. So at the time Joshua was written, which is probably at the end of Joshua's campaign, she's still there living in Israel. And she just so happens, if you read the genealogy in Matthew, she marries Salmon, who is, it's sometimes called Salma or Salmon, but it's spelled just like the fish, salmon. He is he's Boaz's father. So Boaz and Ruth, Boaz is his son, and then Jesse is Boaz and Ruth's son, and David is Jesse's son. So after they do that, then it says they burn the city. It says they took the city. They utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, ox and sheep and ass, with the edge of the sword. But Joshua had said to, see how he says this is past tense, but Joshua had said to the 2 men that had spied out the country, go into the harlot's house and bring out thence the woman and all that she hath, as ye swear to her. Okay, so the 2 witnesses they're Moses and Elijah, and they represent the law and the prophets, but they're actually Moses and Elijah, and Moses and Elijah stand next to Jesus. So they're like this last warning that Jesus is coming. Okay. And of course, the Antichrist is going to kill them, but who's going to listen to them is going to be the church. Rahab is a type of the church, the Gentile bride. Okay, and she is going to be taken out before that destruction comes at the 2 witnesses that they testify of, because it's these 2 spies that are really testifying of the destruction that's coming into Jericho. And Jericho is actually a type of Jerusalem, if you understand that. That's why they're not supposed to take anything from it, and they're cursed if they do, because Jericho is a type. Remember, God takes his types very seriously. So he doesn't want them plundering it because it's a type of Jerusalem in the last days. Jerusalem's going to have a tenth of the city fall down at the seventh trumpet, and this earthquake's going to happen, and it's going to be split in two. So Jerusalem's going to be that city that's ransacked and pillaged. So he doesn't want the Jews doing that here, because it's a type of Jerusalem in the last days. Rahab's a type of the church. The two spies are the type of the two witnesses, and the seven trumpets, need I say, are the type of the seven trumpets. So there you have it. You have seven trumpets. Then you have the church type taken out, and then you have the judgment happen on the city. There you have it. And judgment at the word of Joshua, who is a type of Jesus. So hope you guys are blessed by that typological teaching. I'm going to come up with some more because there are plenty more. That's a good thing about when your theology is right. There's tons of types to back you up. So hope you guys are blessed by this teaching, and hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Batman out. Peace.
Peace, I'm out. I'm Batman.